has now been around for 3 seasons, and coaches everywhere are saving time and being more efficient when it comes to scout cards. Coach Robinson from Texas says, "The thing I most enjoy is the ease of access to all the scout cards and how I can draw on them if I need to make any changes. Every coach that uses it says that it is so great to use. If you and your staff are tired of the old ways of preparing and using scout cards, check out thecoachpad.com to start enjoying Scout Team and making the 2023 season better than ever."
Welcome back to another episode of the Gap Down Backer podcast. Today we have an assistant coach at Scott County High School, who at this point, well, if you've looked, has a clinic on our channel. He is Coach Clay McKee. Coach, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well, Coach Bandstra. You doing all right yourself?
I'm doing good. Like I said, we had a good chat beforehand and trying to reschedule this because I've been sick and then you've had some family stuff. And it's unfortunately that time. Well, yours is a whole different thing, but time of year where people get sick. I mean,
Yeah.
it is what it is. But for people who've not like either watched your clinic or don't necessarily know much about Scott County football, if you're not in the Midwest, maybe, how do you end up as the an assistant coach, quarterbacks coach at Scott County High School?
Well, I'm from here, born and raised, played at Scott County High School, played at Georgetown College. So, didn't go too far for college ball. And then after college ball, I kind of set off with, that GA pipe dream, that I was going to get in and I was going to be a GA. I was going to do whatever I had to do to kind of break into the Division I level. And so spent 3.5 years total at the Division I level, and just had some experiences that I went through that you can't change. I wouldn't give up for anything. Even though I'm back in high school ball now, chasing that dream allowed me to see some things from a different lens outside of this program in this community. I worked in Division III ball in 2020, so I saw that level. And then I worked, from Power 5 to Group of 5 in FCS. So wore some different hats for 3.5 years there. I was a running backs coach at Center College, wide receivers GA, Austin P, quality control with wide receivers and quarterbacks at Eastern for 2 years. That's where I was the longest out of those 3.5. And, man, there came a point, and I've told this story to a few people. Actually, the 2021 opener for Scott County, we got drummed by Franklin County, who had a really good team and some good players. But, I was standing down there in the end zone. We were right in the middle of camp at Eastern, and I just got a little itch that night. We were very lackluster offensively. I could just tell it wasn't maybe going to be a huge year for Scott County football. And, you're looking at that time, the schools had just been split for 3 years. So I felt, there was at least a chance that we were going to lose it, meaning the momentum of, I would call it a dynasty, what we have here to a degree, maybe not as many championships as some teams, but I would call it a dynasty. And I felt like the scales were maybe going to come close to tipping on that. And I felt like I could make an impact to tip that back in our favor. So when the season was over at Eastern, I really started thinking about coming back. I talked to the other coaches on the staff, before I even talked to my dad about it. We kind of laid out what the role would be, started looking into teaching jobs, and into November 2021 is when I came, and I feel like I've had my hair on fire ever since, and we don't plan on slowing down.
No, I get it. You're not wrong. I mean, let's be honest. Like there's a couple of names in Kentucky, and I think Scott County is one of them. Just like your dad's name and just kind of the brand of football you guys run down there. There's a couple ways I'll go with this, but first, you've brought and anybody can go down the clinic links in the bio, and you can kind of see some of the passing concepts he's brought to add to the wing T. What have you taken outside maybe that from coaching in college for 3.5 years, from playing at Georgetown, and brought back to help improve the offense at Scott County?
Oh, well, more motions and formations is kind of like the first obvious answer that you think of from a schematic standpoint. But really, throughout all the ins and outs of being in college ball and the different schemes I saw, what it really did was reinforce something to me that my dad has said around here for a long time, and that is less is more. Less can be more offensively. So really, what I've tried to do with our offense, and I've talked to you about this before, but I didn't come in trying to get us in the gun. I didn't come in, trying to get us running power read and RPO and all that sort of stuff, all the new age stuff. And, some people might have thought that was maybe something I would push for, but, I came in and I looked at what we did, from a self-scout breakdown standpoint. And I said, how can I add eye candy to this? How can we do some of the same things with different footwork, different motion, just different presentations to soften up the box or slow people down and continue to be who we are from a schematic standpoint.
Okay. Now, I mean, with that, how do I want to word this? Like, how is for you guys? Like, obviously, you are a very wing tee. I mean, you are wing tee. I mean, that's about. I mean, like you turn it on. I mean, there are people that go to your school and go to you guys for wing tee. Like, I mean, that's just in general.
Yeah.
And you're very belly oriented. I mean, you talked about that in your presentation, but I mean, I've talked to your dad before. He's been on this channel on an earlier podcast. I mean, for you guys, how has the wing tee evolved from the time, say, your dad started there to you playing quarterback and playing there to where it is now?
I think the biggest thing to me was we were playing in a JV game in 2012 at John Hardin High School, which is, they have not been as good lately, but is a name that a lot of Kentucky high school football people, would know. They've had some very good teams, have a very beautiful facility. But anyways, we're playing in a JV game down there, and lo and behold, we come out and they're in the dead wing tee. Same formations we're in. We're like, no shit. So they're running belly sweep. And we had never seen it ever. They're no motion. They're riding the fullback. Everything looks like belly, for the first second and a half. Then they're taking that dive back. He's going to block the overhang or the edge to the defense. And they're pulling it out of that ride and they're handing it to the wing. And so we're thinking, we ended up winning the game or whatever by several touchdowns, but we just thought like that belly sweep play with the way we fake and the way we ride the fullback, that would be awesome. So I was actually a freshman in high school at that time when we discovered the belly sweep. So 2013, it was the last time that we won a state championship here, was the first year where we really lived in the belly sweep world. And I think we took our Buck series and probably cut it in half by 30 to 50% that year in 2023 and just started running that belly sweep. So I think to me, that's the biggest change. And we actually didn't run any Buck this past year as far as true Buck sweep. We ran some Buck trap, but for us, the implementation of belly sweep has been huge. We started the change in about 2013. We didn't totally abandon the Buck series until the last couple years. We've really just lived more in the belly sweep series to get outside than the Buck series.
Yeah.
So that would be my first thought. Remind me again.
How has it evolved?
How has it evolved? Yeah. Okay. From a pass game perspective, it hasn't evolved a ton. We like to have one guy that can split outside and be Calvin Johnson, what Calvin Johnson was for Georgia Tech. Just, okay, you're going to take, the open side safety. He's going to be committed to the box or, whatever you're going to do. The second we register one-on-one, we love to be able to take advantage of that. No matter whether you're off of us or whether you're not off of us. So, without being critical of guys that played here and were tough players, we didn't have a go get it, go to the house anytime, throw it up and go get it type of wideout for a couple years before I got here. So, it's hard to really develop and grow and trust in your pass game if you don't know if the ball's going to be caught or what your percentages are, or whatever. So I think a big thing for us, has been, at least this past season, we ended up finding a guy that could really go out there. And it was the first time we'd had a guy that could really go and win one-on-ones since, I don't know, man. The years get a little foggy for me there when I was in college. I kept up with him as good as I could. But Glenn Covington was a receiver for us in like 2019, I believe, was his last season. So we had a couple years there where we just our better players or explosive guys were our running backs. So we just want to continue to develop that position, which I take responsibility for. I'm the receivers coach, as well as the quarterbacks. And, if we can develop that position, we'll continue to develop our passing game, long story short.
Oh, yeah. I get it. Now, like, you played quarterback. You've coached quarterbacks, both, and then you've worked with them in college and in high school. The first thing I want you to address, because I think that as well, dude, there's a misnomer. There's that old, they run the wing T, you need to transfer. Yeah. And it's a terrible mindset, because you can still be successful and throw for good yardage. Yeah. And you can still be found. Like, I mean, what's his face? That's at the New England Patriots that was played out of Alabama. He threw like 4 passes a game in high school. Like, I mean, so you can't be found. But you want to talk about that real quick? Like,
yeah, I'd love to talk about that, man. I would love to talk about that. To me, the first thing, just kind of being behind the scenes in a recruiting department at the full scholarship level is, I don't really care what your tape looks like or what kind of offense you're in. If you don't come to that school's campus, I'm talking about the majority of cases here. I know that there's outliers, but if you can't go to camp, the one-day camp, and absolutely put on a show in front of those coaches, running the concepts that they tell you to run, doing the drops that they tell you to run, regardless of whatever your home high school offense is, then to me, you're not even going to get started in a recruiting process with that school. So, I would say first, offers are earned for quarterbacks, in my eyes, at camp, the majority of the time. And you're exactly right. I'm talking about Mac Jones. I played at Georgetown College, which we had a ton of guys from Ohio. So, your audience from Ohio is going to know about Georgetown College football. And in my time there, I played with some tremendous quarterbacks, guys that I was behind on the depth chart, guys older than me, younger than me. And, one of them, I'll never forget, he was a mentor of mine. His name was Ozzie Mann. And he's from Indiana. He started like double-digit games at Ball State. 6'4", 220, 4.75 40, just absolute rocket of an arm. And he played in the wing T in high school. Yeah. And I can remember him showing me his high school tape, and I was just, and it kind of clicked with me then, like, man, this guy's a dude. This guy's a true spread quarterback. Like he's got a high football IQ. He's got all the makings of a guy that would play in a spread or a pro style offense. And then, here he comes. He was in the wing T. So to me, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to tell a kid that if he was throwing the ball 40 times a game, it wouldn't increase his chances to be recruited. But I just really don't think it would, at least from a substantial percentage. You got to be able to throw it in front of the college coaches. Yeah, that would be my first thought with that. And there's also a certain degree to it, Nick, that I'm going to sacrifice for the team. And even myself as a player, I don't think I ever totally grasped that, as much as my dad would have wanted me to. And my younger brother who played quarterback here, I'm not sure he ever grasped it, but I think our quarterback now has a pretty good grasp on it. He's a second-year starter. He'll be in the 11th grade next year. And it's just an offense, man, where we're looking for a guy who's selfless. We're looking for a guy who's going to get the ball where it needs to go, going to command the huddle and not turn the ball over. And if you just pour into that role, if you're Division I, you'll be Division I. We got our quarterback right now. He works with a company called QB Vision. And typically I'm not a fan of third-party trainers, but I do like QB Vision in a sense of they're getting him camp ready. He's doing the off-platform throws. He's doing the spread concepts. So hopefully going into his junior year of camps, which in my opinion is probably the biggest summer of your high school camps, or maybe the next summer, just depending on how your process goes. But, he's going to go in with a chance now. I love where he's at with the win. His footwork it's not perfect, but it's very good. His timing and discipline and progressions are all very good. And now he's adding this tool to his toolkit that he'll use at the next level. And he's doing it through a quarterback trainer that I vetted, that I trust. I know they're not going to change his motion. We talked about his motion. I know they're not going to wholesale change, the quarterback that he currently is. So I don't know, man. It's a unique situation with quarterbacks, for sure, to try to sell to a kid, hey, we might throw it 17 times in one game, turn around in the next week and throw it 3, but we need you to have the same attitude and be just as excited from play to play. It can be hard to sell that, but at the end of the day, we got a team first mentality around here that, for the most part is entirely set in our program. And, if you don't like, I hate to be cynical, but, there's also that mantra too of, hey, we got other guys too, that are willing to sacrifice for the team, if you're not. But like I said, our quarterback does a really, really good job of being selfless. He's a selfless leader. He's not a stat counter. He just does his job when we ask him to do it. And I expect that job to continue to grow as he grows. He threw more. He threw for, over 1,000 yards in the 10th grade versus, I can't remember, somewhere in the 600 or 700 range in the 9th grade.
Yeah.
I think Josh Davis, 2016, 2017 quarterback here, left-handed kid, really talented. He threw for like 1,600 yards one year. So that's kind of like the most we've ever had. So, it's hard because, you want them to have good stats and that sort of thing. But, man, you just got to put the team first. And that's a position where if you can't do that, you're not going to succeed.
Right. No, I get it. Like, I hate that misnomer. And for somebody who's actually experienced it and then went to college, I think that's good.
Yeah.
Your talk about it. And it helps coaches be able to make that argument back more and be more informed. But like continuing on that hill of developing quarterbacks, how do you, whether it be practice or just in general, how do you develop your quarterbacks? Like, obviously, you talked about it in your clinic a little bit, but your pass game's evolved a little bit, and there's some things you've brought on or in that you're trying to do. How do you develop your quarterbacks in your system? And has it changed any how you develop them compared to how you were taught in high school?
I'll tell you what, the way I develop them is a very, very similar version of a man put me in a high school gym when I was in the 5th grade, and he put me on a midline. He put me on a midline, and I started reversing off the midline 6 inches, and I started bird dogging, one step by a whistle. So we take it really, really slow, man, would be my first thought on how we develop quarterbacks. We're going to get you under center. We're going to teach you how to take a snap, and then we're going to teach you the belly steps. Foremost. And I'm not really going to move on, or, I might move on to like a 1-step or a 3-step, but until you get those belly steps down and you're comfortable on that midline reversing out, then, like I said, we're going to perfect that first. And then we're going to master an under center 1-step and 3-step drop with no wasted movement, no false steps, no patter steps. We're going to get our feet in the ground and we're going to get away from the line of scrimmage and we're going to be ready to throw. So I go belly steps, 1-step, 3-step. We're going to master it. And then, of course, you know, those are some things that I do with scheme. You know, if I'm taking a quarterback from ground zero in the off season, we're going to do mechanical throwing off of one knee and off of our butts to start. I got some really good stuff. It's a combination of stuff that I got from Bishop Dullahan, which is a camp in Indiana. Have you ever heard of it?
I have not, to be honest.
Dude, if there's anybody out there listening to this and you got a middle school kid or a 9th grade kid that just needs to learn how to play football, he just needs to learn the basic fundamentals. Bishop Dullahan is the best camp around. They host them at colleges in Indiana and you go stay for 2 or 3 nights. And then, you know, it's a really solid camp. So I use some of that stuff. And then David Buchanan is a marquee name here in Central Kentucky. He was a head coach for a long time at Mason County and Montgomery County High School. He's out. He's in the third-party sector now doing quarterback training. I'm I guess, employee of his. You know, I'll help him. I'm an instructor at some of his camps. So, you know, we'll send our quarterbacks there in the winter, you know, if they're interested in doing something like that. But really just ground up mechanics, man. You know, there's so many ways to teach arm angles nowadays. You know, and David, and we've talked about this a lot, man. He's your old school perfect L. I'm going to keep my elbow above my shoulder, my entire motion, right? I'm going to be perfect. I'm going to follow through with my back foot. You know, he about had a stroke the other day. He texted me. He's getting all these videos. You watch these quarterbacks now, they don't step through.
Mm-hmm.
You seen it?
Oh, yeah, no.
They fire their hips and they just keep their back foot in the ground. And it's, you know, they call it off-platform throws. This is like the new age QB training stuff. So I have had some struggles trying to figure out, okay, where do we meet with all this new school stuff on Twitter and Instagram? And what I know is Bishop Dullahan and David Buchanan, you know, just old school fundamental passing. Where do we meet in the middle? And I meet you in the middle with, I don't really care if you have a low arm slot. I don't really care if you have a high arm slot. What I care about is your shoulder, your elbow being even with your shoulder when you come through. So if you're going to drop it out the bottom, that's fine. If you're going to go straight behind your ear, like do what feels comfortable as long as you're following through with your elbow at your shoulder and your feet are underneath you and you have some type of hip fire. Because if you have those two things, then, you know, I tell a lot of guys, when your mechanics are in line, velocity equals accuracy. You know, velocity, some people talk about, you know, take some off of it, make sure you put it where you got to rip the ball. You know, you got to rip the ball with great mechanics to be accurate. So that's kind of some of the initial teaching points that I start with quarterbacks.
Okay. 2 questions left, Coach. First one I'm going to ask you is I mean, obviously, again, going back, I mean, you brought a lot from your college experience. How has your college experience affected how you deal with stuff in the off season in terms of because you mentioned a little bit already, self-scouting, evaluating what you're doing going into next year? Obviously, your dad probably has a very set way of doing things in terms of how he's handled his off season for the past 20 plus years. Yeah. But what have you brought, or what do you do on your own to self-scout what you guys are doing and to kind of prepare for the next season?
We did an overarching self-scout of our offense where, you know, I just went through and I tagged our plays and we cut all of our concepts into playlists. So we watched the individual run and pass concepts and saw what we liked and didn't like. And then we watched some 1st and 10 stuff. And, you know, we're going to be who we are to a degree. You know, so we're not going to get really in deep with, you know, What are we doing on second and medium versus second and short versus second and long? Because he's been calling plays for a long time, and I got a pretty good feel of when he's going to want to throw. And so, we don't get as in depth as I would have in college. But from a personal standpoint, what I've done is I've taken our top run concepts. I've matched those with the play action passes that go with them, and I've just kind of taken down some notes on, okay, where are we missing? Why are we getting sacked when we run belly sweep to the left, and we're not getting sacked when we run belly sweep pass to the right? Those sort of things. So I've taken it concept by concept and tried to marry our passing concepts with our run concepts, and then try and, you always, if you see something you like, on Twitter or, at a clinic, you try and think, okay, do I like that because it looked pretty, or do I like that because it could actually fit into something that we do? So I've been trying to, take a look at those things. And then what I've been into a lot is our ninth grade offense for our upcoming season. Like I've kind of talked to you a little bit before. That's like my baby. I've said if it'll work on a Saturday morning, the head man's he's more likely to look at it running it on a Friday night. So, I've really narrowed in what we're going to do from a ninth grade point of view, which is not going to be a lot. We're going to go straight at people and then try and cut them open under the top and then have some quarterback run stuff. But that's really what we've done, man. It's just look at our different concepts and figured out what we like pass wise, because there probably became a point with us, third round of the playoffs. I think we had just a tick too much in. We had a tick too much. We just didn't get to all of it. And it all looked really good. It was all really sound, but we just didn't run it. So we had a conversation at the end of December. We said, hey, you got great ideas. Coach Hall has great ideas. Coach Fee has great ideas. But, we got to cut back about 25% because we're spending time teaching this stuff and not calling it on Fridays. Is it really good? Yes, but we got to practice the stuff that we're going to call. So I think it's kind of twofold. We got to, my dad will admit this, man. He's been here a long time. He's called plays certain ways a long time, and it's taken him some time to pull the trigger on some of this stuff. But for the most part, it's been successful when he has, and we're just going to continue to look at it, and we're not going to try and change too much, but we're also not going to stay stagnant and just, run things the exact same way we ran them in 2010 all the time.
Yeah. No, perfect, Coach. And then my last question is because I always want to get this perspective of people who are coaches' sons, because I said this on when we talked during your clinic. I think if you just look at it, and it's not true for every coach's son, but just or coach's child in general, I think are more apt to the sport if their parents coach that sport. They tend to be very successful. Tend to be more knowledgeable of the sport. And it's, I mean, like you can point to all the famous people you want, Lane Kiffin. I mean, you can go down the list of people who are really smart, are very successful. But how do you think that being a coach's son, involved in football since you were born, essentially, as your dad's been coaching, how has that helped you not only as a player, but as a coach? And what kind of you taken from that?
Man, to me, it just set some things in stone that have always been second nature to me. There was like a short time in college where I thought I was like going to be a law enforcement officer, and that lasted about 6 months. Before then I was going to go to the NFL, and then I realized I was going to be an NAIA player. So then I thought about doing something different, and very quickly I realized I wanted to be a football coach, and it was not something I ever had to think about at all. To me, I love the win. Yes, I love all the intricacies behind the game, the preparation, defense, inside run, 3 or 4 times throughout the week. You know, I just love that sort of stuff. But I also love being with these kids, man. And that's why, you know, this stint that I'm having at Scott County right now, whether I never leave here or whether I'm gone, you know, next year, you know, this time right now is so important to me because I'm looking at myself and some of my best friends 10 years ago in the face. You know, these kids that I'm coaching, I know some of their parents, or I know their brothers and sisters. You know, they're Georgetown kids and they're Scott County kids. And you know what the layout was like here, man.
Mm-hmm.
It was one school forever. So Scott County versus Great Cross. There's more Great Crossing people in this town than there is Scott County. And that's just the way the enrollment works. So it's just very important to me to pour into these kids that are the face of the program. You know, they're telling history right now. They're telling their story. You know, they're telling their story. And if I can do anything to help one of them, you know, shine on Friday nights, shine on Monday nights, or have a chance to play at the next level, you know, I'm just jumping at the bit to be able to do that. So I'm very thankful to be where I am, man. I got a lot of pride in this program. You know, we had a big year last year, but we're not satisfied. I think you can probably hear it in my voice, man. The tone of my voice answers your question maybe more than actually what I said. You know, I love this place, man. We got to get back to Kroger Field. You know, that's where Kentucky plays. That's where the state championships held. It's all eyes on Kroger Field, and hopefully we can continue to, you know, impact these young men's lives along the way.
Perfect, Coach. Well, Coach's egg, give him a follow. His Twitter will be in the bio. Give Coach a follow there. Remember, if you've not checked out his clinic on evolving the wing tee passing game, that is in the link is in the bio, or you can just search his name and my name together and it'll probably pop up. Like, share, subscribe, all that lovely jazz. And then check out our sponsor, Coachpad. Otherwise, that was another episode of the Gap Down Backer podcast.